2:42 p.m. 1442 Israel Standard Time. Daf Yomi, tractate Makos, Yud Aleph, Makos, Yud Aleph, Makos 11a, top of the page, with the words Bilashon Azal, Dichtiv, Vaidaber Hashem el Yehoshua lemor. דבר אל בני ישראל לאמור, תנו לכם את ערי המקלט אשר דיברתי עליכם. וגומר. מפני שהן של התורה, with harsh language, as it is written. And the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, Assign you the cities of refuge, of which I spoke to you by means of Moses. Joshua 20, 1 and 2. 20 verses 1 and 2. Why does the Torah repeatedly employ a term of dibur, connoting harsh speech, as opposed to the term amirah, connoting neutral speech? It is due to the fact that the cities of refuge are a mitzvah of the Torah, and therefore they warrant emphasis. Lememra dechol dibur lashon kasher in diktiv diber haish adonai haaretz itanu kashot ve'atanya nidabru ein nidabru ela lashon nachat chen hu omer yidaber amim tachtenu diber lechud yidaber lechud. The Gemara asks, is that to say that all instances of speaking indicate harsh language? The Gemara answers yes, as it is written with regard to Joseph's brothers. The man, the Lord of the land, spoke harshly to us. Genesis 42:30. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in a Braita with regard to the verse, then they who feared the Lord spoke with one another? Malachi 3:16. That the term they spoke is nothing other than a term of gentleness, and likewise the same is true of the verse which states he subdues peoples under us, Psalms 47 verse 4, meaning that God will calmly and gently conduct the nations under the influence of the Jewish people. The Gemara answers the meaning of diber is discreet, and the meaning of yedaber is discreet. There is a difference between the two conjugations of the same root. Simane Rabanan Mehemane Visafre. The Gemara provides a mnemonic for the disputes involving Rabbi Yehuda that follow. Rabbis, Mehemni, meaning a dispute with Rabbi Nehemiah, and the dispute with regard to Torah scrolls sewn with threads of flax. Pligi ba Rabbi Yehuda Rabbanan, Chad over b'nei shishihem, v'chad over b'nei shein shel Torah. The Gemara resumes the discussion of the harsh language employed in the portion discussing murderers in the book of Joshua. Rabbi Yehuda and the rabbis disagree with regard to this matter. One says harsh language was employed because Joshua delayed fulfilling the mitzvah of designating cities of refuge. And one says it is because the cities of refuge are a mitzvah of the Torah, and therefore they warrant emphasis. Vayichtov Yehoshua et hadvarim ha'ele b'sefer Torah Elohim. Pligi bar Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Nehemiah Chad omer shmona psukim v'chad omer arei hamiklat. The Gemara cites an additional dispute with regard to the portion of the cities of refuge in the book of Joshua. It is written, and Joshua wrote these matters in the scroll of the Torah of God. Joshua 24:26. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nehemiah disagree with regard to this matter. One says the references to the final 8 verses in the Torah that record the death of Moses and were recorded by Joshua in the scroll of the Torah, in addition to the rest of the Torah that was written by Moses. See Bava Basra 15a. And one says the references to the portion of the cities of refuge that appears in the book of Joshua. היינו דכתיב בספר תורת אלוהים, אלא למען אמרה למקלט מאי בספר תורת אלוהים, הכי כאמר יכתוב יהושע בספרו, es הדברים האלה כתובים בספר תורת אלוהים. The Gemara discusses these two opinions. Granted, according to the one who says that the reference is to the final 8 verses in the Torah, that is the reason that it is written. And Joshua wrote these matters in the scroll of the Torah of God. As he wrote those verses, and they were included in the Torah. But according to the one who says that the reference is to the portion of the cities of refuge in the book of Joshua, what is the meaning of the phrase in the scroll of the Torah of God? They appear in the book of Joshua, not in the Torah. The Gemara answers, this is what the verse is saying. And Joshua wrote in his book these matters that are also written in the scroll of the Torah of God. Sofer shetafaroi bepishtan, pligim Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Meir, Chad Omer Kasher v'Chad Omer Pasul. The Gemara proceeds to cite another dispute between Rabbi Yehuda and one of the sages, in which it is not clear which opinion is attributable to which sage. In the case of a Torah scroll, where one sewed its sheets with linen threads, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir disagree with regard to this matter. One says the Torah scroll is fit for use, and one says the Torah scroll is unfit for use. Leman domer pasul dichsiv leman tia Torah Hashem epicha v'istakash kol haTorah kol letfilin ma tefilin ha'chalamosh b'sinai letofran begidin av kol letofran begidin v'idach itakash lemutar b'picha lehilchoisav lo itakash. The Gemara elaborates, according to the one who says that the Torah scroll is unfit for use, the reason is as it is written with regard to phylacteries. And it shall be for you a sign on your hand and a memorial between your eyes, in order that the Torah of God shall be in your mouth. Exodus 13:9. And in this verse, the entire Torah is juxtaposed and likened to phylacteries, just as with regard to phylacteries. There is a halacha transmitted to Moses from Sinai to sew them with sinews. So too with regard to all sheets of the Torah scroll, there is a requirement to sew them with sinews. And the other sage holds, when the Torah scroll is juxtaposed and likened to phylacteries, it is only with regard to the principle that the sheets of the Torah scroll may be prepared only from a species of animal that is permitted to your mouth, meaning that is permitted for a Jew to eat. But with regard to its other halachot, it is not juxtaposed and likened to phylacteries. Amarav chazinin lehu letfilin devei chavivi de tefiri yuchitono v'leisir chosakavose. Rav said, I saw that the phylacteries of the house of my uncle, Rabbi Chia, were sewn with linen. But the halacha is not in accordance with his opinion. Phylacteries may be sewn only with sinews. And that concludes the Gemara on that Mishnah. New Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Echad meshuach b'shem ha-mishcha, ve'echad amaru b'bigodim, ve'echad she'avar b'mishichusoi, machzirin es ha-roitzeach. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ach meshuach b'nchama, machzir et. The Torah states that an unintentional murderer is required to remain in the city of refuge to which he fled until the death of the high priest. The Mishnah elaborates, with regard to high priests, who are appointed in several different manners, one anointed with the anointing oil, which was the method through which high priests were consecrated until the oil was sequestered toward the end of the first temple period, and one consecrated by donning multiple garments, the 8 vestments unique to the high priest, which was the practice during the second temple period, and one who received a temporary appointment due to the unfitness of the serving high priest, who departed from his anointment with the restoration of the serving high priest to active service, their deaths facilitate the return of the murderer from the city of refuge to his home. Rabbi Yehuda says even the death of a priest anointed for war to address the soldiers, see Deuteronomy 20, 1-7, facilitates the return of the murderer. לפיכך אם מויסיין של כהנים מספקויס להן מיכי כסוס כדי שלא יספללו על בניהם שימוסו. The Mishnah continues, therefore, the mothers of high priests would provide those exiled to cities of refuge with sustenance and garments so that they would not pray that their sons would die. The more comfortable their lives in the city of refuge, the less urgency they would feel to leave, and the less likely it would be that they would pray for the death of the high priests. Okay, that was the Mishnah. Now the Gemara. Gemara states, וכסיב כי בעיר מקלטו ישב עד מות הכהן הגדול וכתיב אחרי מות הכהן הגדול. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters that the death of these high priests facilitates the return of the murderer derived? Rav Kahana said they are derived from a verse, as the verse states, and he shall dwell there until the death of the high priest was anointed with the sacred oil. Numbers 35:25. And it is written, for in his city of refuge he shall dwell until the death of the high priest. Numbers 35:28. And it is written, and after the death of the high priest, the murderer shall return to his ancestral land. Numbers 35:28. The three mentions of the death of the high priest correspond to the three types of high priests enumerated by the first time in the Mishnah. Excuse me. One anointed with oil, one consecrated by donning the 8 vestments, and one was relieved of his position. Rav Yehuda, kasiv k'dacharina l'shuv sheves b'aretz ad moed hakohen. V'idach midila kasiv hagadol chad mihanach hu. Rabbi Yehuda holds that another verse is written, and you shall take no ransom for him that fled to his city of refuge to return and dwell in the land until the death of the priest. Numbers 35:32, from which it is derived that the death of the priest anointed for war also facilitates the return of the murderer. And the other Tana says, from the fact that high priest is not written in that verse, it is clear that the reference is not an additional type of high priest. Rather, the reference is to one of those high priests mentioned in the preceding verses. לפיכך, אם מויסיין של כהנים, וכולי תימן דרוי מצלו, המצלו מייסי וחסיב, כציפור לנוד, כדרור לעוף, כן, כלס חינם, לא תבוא. אמר להו סבא, מפרקי דרבה שמיע לי, שהיה להן לבקש רחמים על דורן ולא ביקשו. The Mishnah teaches, therefore, the mothers of high priests would provide those exiled to cities of refuge with sustenance and garments so that they would not pray that their sons would die. The Gemara asks, the reason the high priest will not die is that they do not pray. But if they prayed for the death of the high priest, would he die? But isn't it written, as the wandering sparrow, as the flying swallow, so accursed that his basis shall come home? Interesting. כציפור לנוד, כדרור לעוף, כן כלת חינם, לא תבוא. Proverbs 26:2. Why does the Mishnah express concern over a baseless curse? A certain elder said to him, I heard in the lecture delivered by Rava that it is not a baseless curse, as the high priests share the blame for the unintentional murders performed by these people. as they should have pleaded for mercy for their generation, that no murder should transpire. Even unintentionally, and they did not plead. This brings up another question. I mean, this is like an endless circle. Okay, if you want to play the predestiny or free choice game, I mean, in the Torah, it's commanded to have a city of refuge. It's a mitzvah, and we learned earlier that it was a special mitzvah. But then the people go there for killing unintentionally. But then those who go there will pray that the priest dies. But then the priest is also to blame for not praying. And that's why their prayers will work, for the not praying. But how could they, they're praying. How do we know that they're not going to pray? It's almost like guaranteed that they won't pray. It's like an endless circle. They won't pray, and they will pray, and it's a baseless curse, and it's not a baseless curse, and it's a mitzvah, and it's just this endless circle of different reasonings. Okay, due to their sharing the blame, prayers for their death could be effective. V'ika demasni, k'dei shispal b'nem shlo yemusu, tam devasti had lo metzalu, ma'isi, mai havenei lemevad hachamrinan tovia chada, v'zigud managid. And some teach a variant reading of the Mishnah. Therefore, the mothers of the high priests would provide those exiled to cities of refuge with sustenance and garments, so that those exiled would pray that their sons will not die. The Gemara infers the reason that the high priests will not die is that they pray. But if they did not pray for the high priest not to die, would the high priest die? What could the high priest have done to prevent the unintentional murder? Here in Babylonia, we say an adage to describe a situation of that sort. Tovia sinned, and Zigud is flogged. Tovia violated a prohibition, and Zigud came as a single witness to testify against him. Since the testimony of a single witness is not valid in court, he is flogged for defaming Tovia. The sinner is unpunished, and the person who sought to testify against him is flogged. This became a colloquialism for a situation where one is punished for the sin of another. Wow. Tovia chata v'zigud menagid. That's really good. Let's see what that's the gematria. That would be a good one. It talks about someone's punished for the sin of another. 193. Taki. Okay, let's continue. Weiter in Shasen Poiskim. Okay. Alright, so let's continue here. Hasam Amri Shechem Nasil Megabe Gazir. There, in Eretz Yisrael, they say a different adage with the same application. Shechem married a woman, and Mavgai circumcised himself. This is based on the episode of the abduction of Dinah in the city of Shechem, where Shechem compelled all the male residents of the city to undergo circumcision so that he could marry Dinah. Shechem married Dinah, while the rest of the males suffered the pain of circumcision and received no benefit. Magvai. Wow. In the end, Shechem didn't receive the benefit either because he got killed along with all of them. Amlehu Saba Mipir Gadarav the Shmili Shioya La Lavakesh Rachamim Aldoran Alvikshu Kia Deahu Gavra Deachle Alia Beracho Tirata Parse Mine Ravishu Levi Pelo Ishtae Eliyahu Behadei Telaza Yomi. A certain elder said to him, I heard in a lecture delivered by Rava that the high priests share the blame, as they should have pleaded for mercy for their generation and did not plead. Consequently, they required the exiles to pray on their own behalf. The Gemara illustrates the concept of the responsibility held by the spiritual leadership. This is like in this incident where a certain man was eaten by a lion at a distance of 3 parasangs from the place of residence of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, and Elijah the prophet did not speak with him for 3 days because of his failure to pray that an incident of this kind would not transpire in his place of residence. Amar Rav Yehuda Rav כי ללעס חכם אפילו בחינם היא באה מנהלן מאחיתופל שבשעה שקרא דוד שידין כף התהומה באה למשפטה לעלמה אמר באו לכתוב שם אכספה ושדה בתהומה דלקו אדוכתה לקדי אמר לבידי אמר כל ידי דבר זה ואין אומרו יחנק בגרונו. Apropos, curses that are realized, or Yehuda says, that Rav says, with regard to the curse of a sage, even if it is a baseless, meaning based on a mistaken premise, it nevertheless comes to fruition and affects the object of the curse. From where do we derive this? It is derived from this incident involving Achitophel. When David dug the drain pipes in preparation for building the temple, the waters of the depths rose and sought to inundate the world. David said, what is the halacha? Is it permitted to write the sacred name on an earthenware shard and throw it into the depths so that the water will subside and stand in its place? There was no one who said anything to him. David said, anyone who knows the answer to this matter and does not say it shall be strangled. Nasachi toifel kal v'chomer bi'atzmo. Amar ma la'asoi shalmeni shli ishtoi am l'toira shmi shenito v'kedushim achei ha'lamayim lechol ha'olam kulo lo kol sheken. Amar le shareh ketav shem achsapa shdi atahoma nachat nekam meduchte. Then Achitophel raised an a fortiori inference, it means a kal v'chomer, on his own, and said, if in order to make peace between a man and his wife, in the case of a sota, when the husband suspects his wife of having committed adultery, the Torah says, my name that was written in sanctity shall be erased on the water. Then, in order to establish peace for the whole world in its entirety, is it not all the more so permitted? Achitophel said to David, it is permitted. David wrote the sacred name on an earthenware shard and cast it into the depths, and the water in the shard in the depths subsided and stood in its place. Afilu hachi ketiv v'Achitophel ra ki lo ne'aseta atzato v'yachbosh et hachamor. And even so, it is written that during the rebellion of Absalom, and Achitophel saw that his counsel was not taken, and he saddled his donkey, and he arose and went to his house, to his town, and he commanded his household, and strangled himself. 2 Samuel 17:23. Although David stipulated that his curse would take effect only if one who knows the answer fails to share with him, and Achitophel did not fail to share with him, the curse was realized. Perhaps it was coming to him for a different reason, and David just prophesied it. Amar Rav Yehuda ki las chacham afilu al tanai היא באה מנהלן מאלי דקאמר לאלי לשמואל כה יעשה לך אלוהים כה יעזיב אם תכוון ממני דבר ויעבוד גם דכתיב להגיד לו שמואל אז כל הדברים מלוכי אחד ממנו אפילו אחי כסיב ולא הלכו בנו ולאוכו. The Gemara cites a similar statement. Rabbi Babu says, with regard to the curse of a sage, even if it is stated conditionally, it comes through realization. From where do we derive this? It is derived from an incident involving Eli the high priest. As Eli said to Samuel, after the latter had received a prophetic vision with regard to Eli, that his sons do not follow his path, therefore may God do to you, and the more also, if you hide any matter from me, of all the matters that he spoke unto you. 1 Samuel 3:17. And even though it is written immediately thereafter, and Samuel told him all the matters, and did not hide from him, 1 Samuel 3:18, it is written, at the time of Samuel's death, and his sons did not follow in his ways, 1 Samuel 8:3, indicating that God did to Samuel as he prophesied with regard to Eli, and his own sons did not follow his path. Despite the fact that Eli stated the curse conditionally, Samuel was affected by the curse.